the only way you get your technical debt to be understood is if you translate it in dollars. And that's hard. It's a difficult thing to do. But if you want to be understood, that's the way we translate.
Welcome to SaaS That App, building B2B web applications, the podcast where we share real-world stories, practical advice, and tech insights for those building or thinking about starting a tech-enabled business. I'm your co-host, Aaron Marchbanks.
And I'm Justin Edwards. Each week we bring you the stories, strategies, and insights you need to build your SaaS or tech-enabled business smarter, not harder. Let's dive right in.
Hello and welcome back to SaaS That App. I am without my co-pilot today, who is actually on an airplane but not piloting. He is gallivanting around the world having a grand old time. But that is all right, because today we also welcome to the show Stefano Grossi. Stefano is an accomplished executive technologist and product leader. He is the founder of Branco.ai, a cutting-edge platform that helps businesses align strategy with career growth, mainly through AI-driven feedback and action plans. And we're going to get into that some today. He is also the chief technology and product officer at FreshBooks, where he's been a key driver of innovation and financial management solutions for small businesses. And he has a rich background in engineering and DevOps, and so he brings a really unique perspective to the world of business-to-business web applications, where we'll get into technical expertise and leadership insight. So, Stefano, welcome to the pod.
You definitely sold it more than it is, but yeah. No, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Good deal. So I'm always very interested in how people got to where they are, and I was reading some history on you. Have I read correctly that you were or still are an EMT and a firefighter?
Correct. Well, they say you are that for life, especially in the firefighter side. I'm actually not practicing today because I live in Canada, but my certification and everything work only in Italy. But yes, I am an EMT2, which is a paramedic level certification, and I am a firefighter, and I have been for well over 15 years before I moved. So yeah, a lot of stories that, and yeah, a lot of help from that experience to actually the work and what happens during, when you have to fire to fight some emergency. They call it fire. Yeah, that's, it's
Oh, we all have to do that. Oh my gosh, yes. As a former project manager myself, I totally get that. So it's very transferable skills, is what you're saying.
I guess, yes. Like it's mostly in the stress situation, probably. That's the most important part. And I think also in team building, there is a lot of that, a lot of camaraderie and, really the way that you work with people that you put your life in the hands of, translate in a way smaller, probably a little bit less deep way in the world of work, but not that different.
Sure. So how did that, if I can ask, how did that get you into technology, or how does that run parallel to technology, or is that just something where you want to do something besides work in technology?
Yeah, so it's both. It's really, I think there is an inner thing of helping others that I think everyone has, and sometimes you manifest in a way or another. For me was that one. There is a little bit of me that might be considered a little bit of a daredevilish, and so those things, they kind of go together. You can help people and do something that requires a lot of challenging, a lot of learning, a lot of bringing yourself in a place of discomfort. So for me, those are my driver. Like really learning new things and having very challenging things to do is what really pushes me to throughout my career, but also through personal life. So in that case, it was parallel. It was actually while doing school, I started the certification. I started doing it as a volunteer, and then I started doing it as night shifts. And so, I would work at night as a firefighter, and then maybe take a day off, and then work during the day as my day job, which at the time was mostly development or software architecture or that kind of stuff. So that was parallel.
I can understand that. That makes sense. So I want to dive into. I know you've had history before this in terms of like development and engineering, but I want to start with FreshBooks. I want to jump into FreshBooks a little bit. So tell me a little bit about what interested you in FreshBooks, early involvement that you had, and what the problem was that you were trying to solve through that process.
Yeah. So FreshBooks for me, again, if you look at my driver we were just talking about, which took me a while to find them out, but once I found them out, I'm like, for FreshBooks, when I moved to FreshBooks from another company called Soti, which is like a beautiful Canadian company that you don't hear, but you probably touch every time you take a plane or every time you receive a piece of mail in your mailing letter. But I moved from Soti because I wanted to learn culture at scale. I wanted really to learn what a culture-driven organization, how they operate, and how they are structured. And FreshBooks for me was that. It was really about understanding how a company can operate and at the same time keep really culture at this high level and becoming a company that is mostly known as a fantastic employer. And if you are around Toronto or Canada, you know for sure FreshBooks as one of the best employers out there. So that was what called me. That was also about 7 years ago. And it was great. It took the longest recruiting process ever. It was about 7 months. And the reason was because that was really my driver, and the former CEO of FreshBooks would be like, but your thing is bigger than my company. Why would you ever come here? And I'm like, because I want to learn cultural scale. And it's like, I'm like, and that's it. But for me, it was a big thing. And like, does it sound like great? But we're still friends today. And I would say never look back. It was fantastic. I got to solve some amazing problems. I got to work with the best customer you can possibly work with. Small business owners are just fantastic. They are all the 0 to 1. It's just such a beautiful customer base, a beautiful team, and a beautiful product that helps these business owners to really take away the accounting and all the stuff they don't want to learn and just getting their stuff done and getting paid. So, and now also we are the payrolls also pay their employees and get a lot more stuff in the back office of their business. So FreshBooks, great reality. I got in the meantime to grow there from a VP of engineering to Chief Product and Technology Officer. I got to get humbled by some of the best product and design and engineer people that I worked with, especially the product and design side, because it was my area of discomfort. And it was like, I don't know, for 15 years, I felt like I was at the top of my craft. And then I've been plummeting to basically the bottom of the barrel. And those teams just brought me up as in a great way, I would say. And and all the experiences. Honestly, I spent 2 years in Amsterdam as a general manager. I went there and opened our European operation. Until then, FreshBooks was just one building in one city, in one country. Instead, we actually defied the odds of we're going to lose our culture if we go open somewhere else. We actually enriched our culture by adding people from Europe and all over the world that were working in a different place. I think we became a much better organization, being able to work more asynchronously, being able to work and really grow our culture by sharing our values with the people that were on the other side of the pond. And today in Europe, we have over 100 people. And actually, the leaders of product and technology today are in Europe. So very proud of that part. I think we've been an amazing team.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's actually something that I'm very passionate about and is dear to my heart as well. I like to think that I help to drive the culture at the organization that I work for as well. And that's always been a key thing for where it is that you are. I always tell, especially with new hires, it's like, we want you to understand that we want you to like what you do and we want you to like the people that you do it with. in almost equal measure, because you spend a lot of time during the day. So tell me then, what you said you took the step from, your previous position, previous employer into FreshBooks to learn about culture at scale. So what would you say are a couple of the big takeaways that you learned pretty quickly about culture at scale?
If you're a startup, culture is easy. They take care of itself. If you're below 50 people, you're still a startup. Like it's, who doesn't fit. You see it in a couple of weeks and you can take care of it, and that's super easy. When you are multiple thousands of people, there is something where it's more of an institutional culture, and you kind of have to accept it. For me, FreshBooks was the possibility of going in a place that is known for one of the best culture, and really learn from it and shape it and make it possibly better. And what I found, especially in my adventure going overseas, which, by the way, there are some funny stories of interviewing people at the bar and them asking me, is it actually a real company? And it was very interesting. But what I find out is, I think I distill it down to, there is culture and there are values. Culture will change. Culture needs to change, needs to improve, needs to evolve. We were not embedding in the culture some subject that today would be impossible not embed in a culture, like being remote, be more equal, more diversity, more inclusivity. Like all this stuff, 10 years ago was not in the front line, was not the most important part. And now you cannot even survive without it. You cannot make sense of a world or a workplace without it. And in FreshBooks, I found out that the culture got shaped multiple times and actually improved with time. But what was unchangeable were the values we shared. And we took a big deal of defining them. There is an acronym, there is a definition, there is what we mean with passion. It's not just passion as a name, it's actually what we mean. What does that behavior entices? And what do you want to see it demonstrated by the leaders and obviously by everyone in the organization? So I would say that the biggest takeaway is the values. Define your value, make sure that everyone is aligned on the mission, and make sure the values are really defined in a way that you cannot mistake. And then you put that together with a bunch of very smart and nice people, and you probably have this culture really being a living and breathing animal that it's felt. You don't need to write it. It's just felt around. So yeah, that would be the number one thing. Values are the cornerstones of culture, and take time to define them and make sure that those are not negotiables.
That's fantastic. And you're not the first person that's been on the show that has said something in maybe a slightly different way, but it does seem to follow that very successful organizations, particularly startups and especially in the world of SaaS, when you're trying to attract people and you want to grow a business that you love and are passionate about, that culture does seem to follow values, and then success seems to follow culture. And so it makes a lot of sense what you say, and it's always really nice to hear people's different perspectives or angles on that same take. So yeah, really appreciate that. So shifting just a little bit away from culture and to product, you had mentioned that, by the time that you came on, obviously FreshBooks was very well established, but you also, as part of your different positions, got to work in some large achievements, some big features. You solved some problems, small and large. Talk to me about a couple of the problems that you ran into and how it was you all worked to a solution as an organization.
I would say that the big one are, I give you one early, one later, and one last. And the big one in the early time was a migration. I know you wanted the migration. So it's a migration from a legacy platform that contained, let's say, 30% of the user, but 80% of the revenue. So how that is. That is normally translates to that catch up of feature and moving people. Best possible outcome is a churn that is a little bit better than you expected. So it's a game that you just lose. Like there's no winning on that game, right? And so that was one, migration. So legacy platform migration. The second one, I think, international expansion. That was a very big one. And the last one, I think, it was mostly a better serving our larger customer that in the beginning they were not the reason why the new product was actually built for. So it kind of relates to the migration, but is a little bit different. So that is where we're going to talk about, for example, the inclusion of advanced payments, the inclusion of payroll, and this kind of thing that if you think for a application for small business owner that might be solopreneur, might be alone. Obviously, payroll is not the thing that they have most in mind. There are as well, but but I would say that our larger users, they have a product now that they never had before. So yeah, those three I think are three massive ones. And I don't know if you want to go the funny one as well. It's like the migration and the international experience were two pretty funny ones. I actually wanted to send an email personalized with myself to all the customers that were going to be migrated and give them my email address if they wanted to complain.
Oh boy.
Actually, it's funny because I have customers I talk to even today, and they came from that experience. And they're like, and we're friends, like we're actually friends now. And I'm like, and they were like, I for 6 months, for 6 months of my life, I hated you. Like I couldn't even, I didn't know you, but I really didn't like you. And I was like, I get that. I'm like, again, it's not a nice game to play also when you're on the other side, but we really need to have it. And actually, it was interesting there from a product and engineering point of view is when did we decide that the migration has became mandatory instead of optional? So the new product was up since 2016, and we decided in 2018 to make that migration mandatory. And the reason was there is something we call it basically the classic tax. So the classic, it was the internal name of the old product. And we call it the classic tax, which means every time we had to touch a new feature, because we had portability among the two systems, it was like we had to pay a tax that was impossible. And so our customer will get the feature probably not exactly as they could have had it, and for sure way later than they could have had it. And so that when we got to a point where we were talking about international expansion, we were talking about this larger customer, we were talking about doing a lot of other things, and like paying a 20 to 30% velocity tax was something we decided to stop doing. It was 18 months of pain moving all these customers.
What was the percentage? I mean, how many people were there left to migrate at that point?
It was over 30,000.
Oh my goodness.
Well over 30,000, yeah. And they were the largest customer.
Sure, of course.
So it was a large number. And so yeah, it took a while, but I think that we did a couple of things we did great. The first thing is that we had one person for every single team in the room when we made any decision. Second, we kept our most coveted document was a decision log. Every time we made a decision, the decision log was available to everyone in the organization, so they understood why we made that decision. And third, we had the whole organization will receive every 2 weeks an update that contained all the data and all the details. The same update that went to the board actually went to the team inside. So they would know how we were progressing. They would know what customer were saying and they were not liking, what customer they were liking, how was the process, and all this thing, and all the metrics we were tracking, like their happiness level, CSAT, NPS. We were tracking actually usage of the new system, way more important less vanity metrics, if you want that were really related to the migration. Like if you were doing this kind of stuff in the old system, are you still doing that? Are you doing it faster, slower? And we find out that the new system was much better in a million ways, much simpler to use, but in some cases was much more cumbersome for people that are actually used to the swiftness of, when you change something that takes you 3 clicks to 5, it's a big change. It's actually an impossible thing. So then we had a lot of places to go and say, well, we changed them from 3 to 5. Now let's bring them to 2. And so it was great for us to get a lot of places to improve the product. So
I love that, and there's several things in there that really spoke to me. I really I had not really given a lot of thought to like this decision log idea. As organizations, I think also it's very important to be transparent, not only with your clients, which usually they appreciate. There's obviously a threshold, but similarly with your staff and your team, just so that they understand better what the thought process is and what's going on, so it doesn't just feel like we're throwing this change at you.
And they know that one of them was in the room making that decision, right? So they knew to go, what to ask, and really understand. There was always, so what's the impact on me, right? And whether you are in in support, especially obviously, whether you are in sales, whether you are in marketing, whether you are in engineering, data, like there were, the ability of having like that line of communication. I think that was a great thing. I would, if I were to do it again, I would do that again for sure.
Good deal. Well, and you actually answered several of my other questions that I was going to throw at you too. I'm always interested in technical debt. When you're dealing with these solutions that, one, need to scale, and two, are longer term. It's not just something that was right out of the gate. Like you said, you're migrating tens of thousands of users, and at some point, as an organization, you're having to reach a point where you're having to rebuild or refactor or reinvent or redesign to be able to continue to improve. And so I'm always curious the decision-making process that goes into, how you approach that technical debt. What are the markers or the things that you look for to begin that process? And then, like you had just talked about, when is like the drop dead? It's like, we just simply have to do this now. We cannot continue to drag along this legacy system or feature or what have you.
I have a big definition on technical debt, and something that I try to really drill into, especially technical leaders. The only way you get your technical debt to be understood is if you translate it in dollars. And that's hard. It's a difficult thing to do. But if you want to be understood, that's the way we translate.
It does. It just drives it home, doesn't it? Yeah. And you can just side by side compare it, just like you've done. It's like, you can stay here, but here's how much it's going to continue to increase on your cost, slow down on your development, eliminate certain fees. I mean, you can lay it out very clearly. And yeah, I've seen good success with that as well.
It becomes very straightforward. Actually, it's funny enough. I did write an article about it because it's a theme that always comes to me. I wrote an article. I call it the pyramid of needs. And I'm like, it's basically how to sell technical debt to a board. How to get everyone in your organization, from the board to the person working on support or in design, understand like what are the needs you need to address and how, and making a very conscious decision on how much do we want to spend in each layer. And the layer at the bottom, it's really about the KTLO, which will keep the lights on, right? If you have no features, how does that look like? So that if there is something there, you gotta invest. And then on top of that, there is quality. I'm like, you don't go anywhere else. You don't get new feature. You don't get new stuff if you didn't work on quality. Then there is the enablement, where you enable the other team to do what they need to do. You can't block other teams. That's not possible. And then there is the enhancement. So what is your MVP today? How do you make it better for tomorrow so you don't lose your competitive edge? And then at the top, when all of this is taken care of, then there is the new feature. 90% of leaders and people, you talk about roadmap, you just talk about that thing. And that is small. Should be. And everyone wants to spend, I want to spend 50% of my time there, 80, 90, I want to spend all my time there. However, if you don't know how much, like the cost at the bottom, you actually don't even get to decide. It's imposed on you. Like your uptime, your on-call rotation, your team, making sure that people are not leaving, and you don't get to choose that. You got to do it, right? Quality, you can choose. I think in the end, you choose the three in the middle, and the bottom one dictates how much time you have for your roadmap. So your technical depth is there, right? So we can decide, hey, we can tweak a little bit down on quality, a little bit more helping marketing, and we do absolutely no work on the MVP for the next month. That's fine. You can play with those. I'm like, but there is a indirect correlation between the KTLO and your roadmap. The bigger this one, the smaller that one. That's about that.
It's only so big.
I know everyone likes that. Like everyone likes it. But my CEO used to go nuts. Like, you want extra statistics around that? It's like, how are we on the pyramid? I was like, yeah, no, we are executing the amount we want to execute. It's pretty okay. The bottom is not impacted too much at top. There were a lot of time where the bottom was very big. And we were like, okay, we are here now. We're going to go here if we do these things. And so that actually, again, one of the things was actually the migration. So that's an interesting topic, connects pretty well to that.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I got one other question that kind of along the same line. So, obviously you've done the tech work as well. You've done product development. You've seen startups. You've worked in larger organizations, and something that has come up in other podcasts and actually just talking with other business leaders as we're working through our own consulting work. There seems to be, especially the closer that you get to the top of an organization, this predominant mentality of fail fast. Founders in particular, it's like, I want to fail quickly. If it's going to go wrong, I need to know now. I want to make that call. But I'm curious now, having heard all of this, how do you feel about this fail fast mentality? Or are you more toward the, best innovations come from slower, more methodical processes?
That's the part when you actually looking at the new stuff you're building, probably, right? Because everything else is like, you don't want to fail fast in keeping your system up. It's better if you just stay up. So when you look at new stuff, I am a big proponent on just look at the outcome and allow the team to be the leader in experimentation. So there is a concept about outcome over output, which is very hard for people to understand, to be honest, but it put it bluntly is like, well, what kind of result do you want to achieve here? Like, which number do you want to change and how? And don't tell me what to do. I will not tell my team what to do. I will tell them, we want to change this number from this to this, and you come back and tell me what we should do. Because you know better, you're closer to the data. And maybe the first time you're going to come back and tell me, well, I don't know because I need to learn. And so we can have a discussion about let's fail fast and understand that learning is as good as an outcome and sometimes the outcome itself. And it's much better having an outcome of learning than having an output that no one uses it. I can build any feature in any time constraint to give me. It will be either super shitty and it possibly is completely useless. So my point is, let's see what outcome we want to achieve, not which feature we want. And let's go and experiment. What are the things we need to change in order to achieve that outcome? Could be the feature, but could be completely different things. The key might be marketing. I don't know. The key might be we are just getting in the wrong customer. We need to change our messaging, and we are no change to do the product and things like that. So, and that I think is part of fail fast. Like the closest you go to the people that know the data and allow them to really have this culture of experimentation and learning and understand that there are two types of outcome. One is the one you want to achieve, and one is the learning to get there. I think those are big mindset that they are not explained all the time correctly when we talk about fail fast.
That actually does highlight several things that haven't come up when I've heard people talk about that. So I think that's terrific. So through all of this, I'm starting to really get a feel and an understanding for where I want to go next and why it's important to you, which is Branco.ai. Everything that you have been talking about, obviously, has been leading us to this conversation or this part of the conversation. And I'm understanding from you now as a person and kind of your perspective and your outlook on things on why this is important. But I'm going to ask anyway. What was it that sparked your transition into Branco or into this world, and particularly with an AI-driven focus, but just in a general sense, what got you here?
I banged my head for 20 years on performance review. I don't know if the very few people love performance review, but the thing I love the least is I really wanted something that allowed, I think that at their inception, performance review were created to get people better. Then something along the way went wrong, and now they are in a different place. I wanted to bring it back to the ABC. I wanted to bring it back to, hey, let's do something that is targeted at people growth and people and getting better in the future than something that just looks at the past. And then I started talking to a lot of people that were in great places in terms of tool and people growth and things like that, and people that were not in these great places. And then I constantly heard this continuous feedback, which is this chimera, this nirvana that everyone wants to get to, but no one gets to. Everyone would like feedback every second and would like an actionable, strong feedback, and no one gets it. And when you get it, it's either just a list of checkbox or a fake, or now even worse, an AI-generated sentence that people don't even take care of editing, instead of actually being some real feedback about the stuff that matters. And so with everything I learned in the last 20 years, I started building and creating tools for me to be able to grow my team. Like, I think that, one thing I'm very proud of is like everyone who worked with me would work with me again because they grew. And so when I hire any manager at any level, I'm like, look, you gotta get your people better, and then you can screw up everything else. And then it's funny because then the team saves their butts and they don't screw up everything else too, right? So if there is this nice circle, if you're not in for that, just change job, like do something else. And so when you think about that, I try to bring it down to a system. So I'm like, okay, so what are the things that matter? And the thing that matter is there is one thing is the getting stuff done. You can replace stuff with another word, but GST, getting stuff done. So your impact on what the team is trying to achieve. The second thing is your skills. You gotta be able to do the job. The third things, which connects us to the beginning of our conversation, are your leadership competencies. So how do you embody the values of the organization? Branco has a value. You start from the values. It actually forces you to put the value in order to define this parameter for your organization. So what are the values and what are the behavior you want to see? And the fourth one is, do you have a plan for yourself to get better? Because 90% of people, they actually don't have a plan. If you don't have a plan, it's very hard to understand if you're going to actually reach it. And so I put this four, and I mix this with what we think is the only autonomous continuous feedback tool in the market. Branco integrates with Slack, and once every X days, let's say once a week, it asks your peers, so people that work with you on a day-to-day basis on the same objectives, it asks them, well, what was Aaron's contribution to this team objective? Give me an example. It pushes people to actually give good feedback, actionable feedback. And so there is this multiple agentic AI system. Once grabs your feedback and understand what your peer, what your 360, the people around you, your mentor, your manager, it has all this concept, and understands what people are experiencing about you. It then understands how much those fit your the expectation of the organization that are configured, custom for this organization. And then it builds actually the action plan for you. So it gives you suggestion as like, look, instead of telling you, you need to get better at communicating, which is what probably each one of us heard once in their life. It's like, no, because you sometimes come abrupt, why don't you, in the next 2 weeks, in your retrospective with your team, explain what your decision were, your decision process, and ask for feedback from your team members. And so it suggests this little action to change, this little behavioral change. And then it gets feedback on it. And then it feeds itself. And what it creates for you is basically a constant leadership, executive level coaching ongoing on the system based on the live feedback you get from others. And what people use is just luck. So they don't have to go somewhere and remember a login and go compile a form. It's just, 3 minutes a week on Slack, you answer 3-4 questions and you're done. And what happens behind the scene is that all these 3-4 questions a week that are randomized between the people around, at the end of the year become 200 pieces of feedback that is extremely actionable. And it's obviously, it has all the, it gets summarized, you don't see who that is, blah, blah, all this stuff like security, etc. But there is a huge amount of intelligence applied to the organizational design in order to actually come out at you and say, hey, those are the steps you should take to go there where you want to go. And so it's for me is if it's our way to replace performance review. It's our way to make performance review a 5-minute meeting where you just review the output of the 360 feedback you had on a weekly basis, and it's just it just works. So it's funny. And talk about fading fast. Our first customer was using the system without login. We didn't build the login yet. We didn't have a web application where they could go and actually see what they're saying. I'm like, but because they asked Slack, I'm like, great, let's just start getting feedback, because that was the core. The core was, if we get that continuous feedback properly, then we have something that can actually change the paradigm of what people are trying to do in a better performance.
Sure. So I'm curious, and this may jump way down into the weeds too fast, but I'm assuming that this is probably based more on like an LLM type model for your AI. Are these data points and is what it is learning encapsulated only to the organization? Or is it something that, for lack of a personality to put to it, is it something that the AI is then utilizing in other organizations to help them as well? I'm just curious about the data segmentation.
It's a great question. So today is in full isolation. It actually leaves absolutely no footprint anywhere. We use enterprise level Vertex API, and we actually have no history allowed. So there is no history in anything. We rebuild the context every time. It's the implementation is done in a way where we actually spend more, but we keep our customer information and data very safe. And so we have absolutely nothing, no data sets, nothing that gets shared. There is a very good new trend that is not very super new, but there is something that you were touching upon, which is the federated learning. Today has been experimented mostly in among hospitals, which is basically you cannot ever share the information of a patient, but you can share the learnings. And so there are a lot of federated learning infrastructure that have been built for this specific purpose. And maybe in the future, we would have something like that just to make sure that, hey, if you're learning something from company A, we can give it as, as a best practice to all the companies using Branco, but today is not. So today we look at the feedback, we look at the usage pattern, we look at the type of interaction user are having, and if there is a change, we basically is the one we learn more than the one that AI is not free to learn, basically, on our data. There is no training inside here today.
No, that's very cool. And I do like that approach. I asked it for several personal reasons as well, but I'm always interested, especially as we teeter into AI, and it's machine learning to be sure, but it's also it also has a lot that can be shared that can help us learn across multiple verticals instead of just in a single vertical or even in just one single location. And I'm always curious how people see that approach coming, and there's obviously a lot of inherent danger. There's a lot, like you say, with in the States, we have HIPAA compliance issues, like you touched on there with sharing medical information. And that is actually key to the success for someone's medical health in the future. But at the same time, you got hurdles to get over between hospitals and organizations and doctors and things like that. So it's interesting always to hear where those lines get drawn and how it is that we can extract the very useful bits, the experience bits, but not necessarily the specific context.
We'll get there, but the technological infrastructure today is not supporting that super well. There is also today a fairly large problem on tenancy, especially for multi-tenant system using this kind of services. There are bad solutions out there, and we prefer to not use any of them until we have some things we are not flexible on, like sharing with anyone else what one person performance might look like, or what are the feedback from one person to the other, or what are the objective of the company A versus company B. So for now, that is for us, doesn't allow to share anything today.
Indeed. Well, Stefano, we're kind of coming up on the end. So one last question: what is next? What's next for you? What's next for Branco? What do you see next coming down the line?
So right now we are in basically a soft launch period. We are reaching out to companies. We have a good amount of users like using us. We just predicted one person leaving an organization, and we were right. And we predicted a second person, and hopefully that person can be saved. So that's actually, those are the metrics that for me really matter. And we are probably responsible for a promotion, which is like the metrics number one for us. So we are trying to keep going, keep looking at this stuff. I think that the most important part that we are going to now is really inside the system. We just deployed like the reporting and administration area. And there is the part about, we get people better. We get people giving better feedback. And now we want to also get manager better. So there is an old tool set for managers that is in the works today. So it's I think it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm just looking at the data. Is such a beautiful thing, and obviously it tumbles me all the time because it tells me that I'm not sometimes as great as I think. So
no, that's fantastic, and I've really enjoyed this personally too, because this is a big part of what I spend a good amount of time day to day working on. Is like I said, I work in our culture. I work with the team very closely, and helping to provide them with that feedback. Regularly we use a one-on-one process, and so. I always tell everybody, if we get to any sort of like a performance review sort of a time period, and you're hearing something for the very first time, one of us has failed big time, and it's probably me. So, this type of stuff is very exciting to me. I'm always looking for good technology solutions for that too. So, yeah.
So I have a great product to suggest.
Do you now?
Actually saves you. We actually counted. It saves you about 160 hours for each manager and 30 hours for each employee in an organization, and actually makes them and you better. So, which is probably the thing that matters the most here. But
yes, that's key. Stefano, this has been incredibly informative. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your insights. We have been talking to Stefano Grossi, founder of Branco.ai, among other things. Stefano, where and how can people reach you?
So LinkedIn, that's an easy one. We have, LinkedIn is probably the best. Branco.ai has also his own LinkedIn. But yeah, that's probably the best way to get me.
Fantastic.
More than Stefano at Branco.ai, but I don't know if it's worth sharing that.
Oh, well, we'll throw it out there.
I get my email to all the customer in the migration. So,
I was just about to say, everybody knows it. Everybody has it. I feel like we should too. Thanks, Stefano. And a special thanks as always to our listeners. If you like what you're hearing, have ideas for the show, or just want to tell us what's on your mind, throw a review our way or subscribe if you are so inclined, and we will see you all next time on SaaS That App. Thanks for cruising along with us on SaaS That App. We hope you grabbed some insights that were inspiring, actionable, or at least entertaining.
If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep those apps sassy.